When a billionaire catches his cleaner dancing with his disabled daughter, he's ready to explode, until the girl says one word that changes everything. What begins as a scandal turns into a journey of healing, joy, and transformation. This isn't just a story about wealth, it's about what truly makes us human. In the heart of Lekki, Phase 1, Lagos, billionaire entrepreneur Chief Ebube Obi lived in a marble mansion so large that even silence had space to echo. He was the type of man whose name alone opened doors, whose presence shifted rooms. From tech investments to oil logistics, Chief Ebube was a titan, respected by business moguls, feared by competitors, and adored by the media. But behind the gleaming press releases and private jets was a wound that no amount of wealth could mend. His only child, Zara, was born with cerebral palsy. She could not walk or speak clearly. At just 10 years old, she had already lived more isolated than most adults ever would. Since his wife's death in a tragic car crash 3 years ago, Chief Ebube had withdrawn emotionally. He ensured Zara had the best medical care money could afford. Foreign-trained physiotherapists, a live-in pediatric nurse, a room full of the latest therapy gadgets. But he rarely visited her. Her wing in the mansion was separate, custom-built like a small hospital. Everything she needed was provided, except what she needed most: love, attention, and warmth. The staff followed orders to the letter. Her nurses measured every spoonful of food, tracked every blink and twitch, and filled reports for the medical team. But no one played with her. No one sang to her. No one danced. Her laughter had been forgotten. Even the maids only saw her as the special room they shouldn't disturb. Then came Ijoma. She arrived on a Wednesday morning, part of a fresh batch of cleaners from an agency recently hired to replace the last group who had grown careless. Ijoma was 24, slim, brown-skinned, with expressive eyes that carried more life than her uniform suggested. She didn't speak much during orientation. She just nodded, clutched her mop and cleaning caddy, and got to work. Her job was simple: clean the third-floor corridor, wipe the windows, polish the floors, never enter any rooms without permission, especially the wing where Madame Zara stayed. But curiosity has a way of opening locked doors. On her second week, while dusting a flower vase near the entrance of Zara's wing, Ijoma heard a soft, repetitive thump, like a hand hitting a cushion in rhythm. She paused. It wasn't a sound of distress, just rhythm. She peeked into the slightly open door and saw Zara alone in her wheelchair, lightly tapping her hand on the armrest while music played softly from a corner speaker. Zara noticed her. Their eyes met. For a second, Ijoma hesitated, unsure if she should leave or stay. But Zara gave a crooked smile, a rare, beautiful thing. Ijoma walked in slowly. "Good morning, my little madam," she whispered, kneeling beside the chair. "You like music, Abi?" Zara blinked and tapped her hand again, as if answering yes. After that day, Ijoma made it a habit. Every time she cleaned near Zara's room, she'd slide the door open just enough to wave. She started bringing her own playlist of soft Afrobeat and classic highlife. No loud lyrics, just rhythms that could soothe. When she had a few spare minutes, she'd sit across the room and hum softly, pretending to be dusting while sneaking little side glances at Zara, who watched her with growing delight. Then came the moment that would change everything. It was a Friday afternoon. Most of the staff were occupied with preparations for a high-profile meeting Chief Ebube was hosting. Ijoma, assuming no one would notice, stepped into Zara's room as a sweet Onyeka Onwenu track played. She gently held Zara's hands and swayed side to side, guiding the girl's arms in simple, slow movements. Zara giggled. A real full laugh that filled the room. It was the first time that sound had echoed off those walls in years. Ijoma didn't even notice the tears forming in Zara's eyes. She was lost in the moment, her body moving gently, her smile wide and honest. She twirled, let Zara mimic her with small arm waves, and laughed along with the child who had known only silence and pity. But unknown to her, someone was watching. It wasn't the surveillance cameras. It wasn't another cleaner passing by. It was Chief Eboob himself. He had returned early from a cancelled meeting and decided to take the stairs instead of his usual elevator. As he walked past the long corridor to Zara's wing, he heard music, soft, cheerful, familiar. Then he heard laughter, his daughter's laughter. He froze. Slowly, carefully, he walked toward the open door, peered in, and saw the cleaner dancing gently with his child. His first instinct was rage. Who gave her permission? Why was she touching his daughter? Why was she in that room? But as he stood there, the anger began to dissolve into something else: shock, confusion, and a powerful pang of guilt. Because in all these years, with all his money, all his specialists, and all his medical reports, not once had he heard that laugh. Not once had he seen Zara move with such joy. And yet, here was a girl, just a cleaner, with no degrees, no background, and no clearance, bringing light into his daughter's world. He stood there silently watching them dance, listening to the one sound he hadn't heard in years: his daughter's happiness. Rain pelted the windows of the sprawling Obi mansion, the kind of heavy Lagos downpour that silenced traffic and blurred the skyline into smudges of grey. Chief Eboob's driver turned into the compound earlier than expected, the tyres of the black Range Rover slicing through shallow puddles. His afternoon board meeting had been abruptly cancelled, and for once he decided not to head to his penthouse office or one of his private lounges. Instead, he climbed out of the car without a word and walked through the front entrance, dismissing the surprised greetings of staff with a simple wave. As he made his way up the grand staircase, something caught his attention. A faint tune drifting through the air, warm and lilting like a memory long forgotten. It came from the direction of Zara's wing. His brows knitted. That part of the house was usually silent, except for the hum of machines or the soft murmur of the nurses. He moved towards the sound, his polished shoes quiet on the tiled floor. As he got closer, he recognized the melody. It was a high-life classic, one his late wife used to sing around the house. The music stirred something inside him, a longing he didn't want to admit. Then, just as he reached Zara's doorway, he heard laughter. Not any laughter, Zara's. He paused, heartbeat suddenly uneven. Slowly, he pushed open the door and froze. There, in the middle of the room, Ijoma was dancing slowly, holding Zara's hands. She twirled gently, guiding the girl in her wheelchair to move with her, step by imaginary step. Zara's head was tilted back in delight, her mouth open in laughter, her arms moving stiffly but joyfully in rhythm. It was a sight so raw and beautiful that Eboob felt as though the wind had been knocked out of him. Then the shock turned to anger. "What is going on here?" his voice thundered, cutting through the music like a blade. Ijoma gasped and stumbled back, instinctively raising her hands. The music stopped abruptly. Zara flinched, her smile faltering. Footsteps echoed as the nurses and other staff rushed in, alerted by the shouting. "What are you doing in this room? Who gave you permission to touch my daughter?" he bellowed, eyes burning with a fury he himself didn't fully understand. Ijoma's lips quivered. I didn't mean any harm, sir. She looked lonely and the music made her smile. You were just what? Entertaining yourself at her expense?" he cut in harshly. "No, sir," she said softly, eyes glistening. "I just wanted her to feel seen. She looked like she needed a friend." The room was silent, save for the distant drumming of rain on the rooftop. Then, Zara did something no one expected. She reached toward her father, her fingers twitching in the direction of his suit jacket, and with great effort she spoke a single word. "Happy." Everyone in the room froze. Her voice, though slurred and strained, was unmistakable. Eboob turned to her slowly, eyes wide. What did you say?" he whispered. Zara nodded and tried again. "Happy," she said, this time clearer, pointing slightly toward Ijoma. It was a dagger to the chest. In 10 years, he had never heard her say a word with such intention. Not to him, not to anyone. Ebub's jaw clenched. His gaze shifted back to Ijoma, who was still standing there, hands clasped, eyes lowered. "Everyone out," he said quietly. The staff obeyed at once. Only Ijoma remained. "Tell me," he said after a long pause. "Why did you really do it?" She looked up, voice calm. "Because no child should feel invisible, sir. She has everything, but not what she truly needs. Someone to see her, someone to dance with her, not because they're paid, but because they care." Ebub stared at her for what felt like a long time. His pride warred with something deeper, something softer that he had buried under layers of business and grief. Finally, he nodded slightly. "You're suspended," he said curtly. "Go home. I'll think things through." Ijoma's heart sank. She nodded and left quietly, unsure if she'd ever return. Days passed, and something strange began to happen. Zara stopped resisting her therapy. She started smiling more. She became restless, more alert, often pointing to the door and murmuring, "Auntie." She refused meals from some of the staff and grew fussy during sessions. One afternoon, she even burst into tears when her music player refused to work. Ebub watched from afar, unsettled. He couldn't ignore the truth anymore. That brief moment with the cleaner had sparked something the specialists couldn't. It wasn't medication or machines that brought Zara alive. It was connection. And though he hated to admit it, Ijoma had done in 2 weeks what no one else had managed in 10 years. She had made his daughter happy. Ijoma was scrubbing the cracked concrete floor of their small one-room apartment in Ajegunle when she heard the commotion outside. Children were shouting, adults whispering, tires crunching gravel with a low hum. Her younger brother Emeka ran in breathless, eyes wide. "Sis, come outside. Big man Don come, big black car." She wiped her hands on her wrapper and stepped out slowly, heart already pounding. The neighbours had gathered near the edge of the narrow street, staring in awe at a sleek black Lexus SUV parked just in front of their compound. The tinted passenger door opened slowly, and out stepped Chief Ebub Obi, billionaire, business mogul, and the man whose mansion she had cleaned not long ago. He looked different, less polished, less guarded. He wasn't wearing his usual three-piece suit, just a simple shirt, chinos trousers, and loafers. But his presence still made the crowd fall silent. Conversations died. All eyes turned to him. Then to Ijoma, who stood frozen near the doorway of their humble apartment. Chief Ebub walked up to her, not with the arrogance of a man used to being served, but with the quiet humility of a father desperate for hope. "Ijoma," he said softly, "my daughter needs you. And so do I." Ijoma's mouth opened slightly, but words didn't come. Her mother appeared behind her, shocked. The neighbours gawked, some whispering about how a cleaner must have stolen a billionaire's heart. But Ebub ignored them all. He reached into his pocket, pulled out a letter, and handed it to her. Inside it was an offer, permanent employment as Zara's full-time caregiver, full medical coverage, accommodation in the family mansion, and, what made her gasp, a full scholarship to study child therapy at one of the best institutes in Lagos. "I don't want someone to watch her," he added. "I want someone to see her, like you did." Tears filled Ijoma's eyes as she nodded. "Yes, sir." The very next day, she packed what little she owned and returned, not as a cleaner, but as a beacon of change. The mansion gates opened for her with respect this time. The staff who had once ignored her now nodded politely, many offering smiles that weren't quite sincere. But she didn't care. Zara's face lit up the moment she saw her. The child reached out, calling out in her stilted voice, "Auntie!" Ijoma rushed to her, kneeling down, wrapping her arms around her with tears slipping freely. "I missed you too, my sunshine." From that day on, everything changed. Zara began to thrive, With Ijoma by her side, she responded faster to therapy. She no longer resisted physical exercises. With patience, music, and love, Ijoma helped Zara strengthen her muscles. They danced every morning, slow but joyful steps, each session filled with laughter. Within weeks, Zara began using words more consistently, simple ones like music, dance, auntie, and papa. One afternoon, during one of their sessions in the courtyard, Eboob stood by the window watching. Then slowly, like a man testing unfamiliar waters, he walked out and joined them. At first, he stood stiffly by the edge, but Zara saw him, extended her hand, and giggled. "Papa, dance." The words hit him like thunder and melted something he didn't know was still alive in him. He took her hand. Ijoma guided them, and for the first time, father and daughter moved together to the music. From that moment, Eboob stopped hiding behind meetings and business calls. He started spending more time at home, observing, learning, participating. Slowly, the walls in the mansion came down. The cold silence that once haunted its rooms was replaced by warmth. Laughter echoed from Zara's wing into the hallways. Music floated through the corridors. Even the staff began to change. Inspired by Ijoma's approach, the nurses became gentler. The therapists adapted their routines. The mansion became less of a hospital and more of a home. Eboob found himself laughing again, genuinely laughing. He began taking breaks from work just to sit in on dance sessions, even learning the silly hand gestures Zara loved. And every evening, he would walk with Ijoma through the garden, asking questions, not just about Zara's progress, but about life, family, and dreams. One day, as Zara took her first supported steps across the living room, clutching both Ijoma's and her father's hands, a cheer erupted from everyone present. Eboob knelt down, pulled her into a hug, and looked at Ijoma with eyes full of unsaid gratitude. "You gave her back to me," he whispered, "and you gave me back to myself." Ijoma smiled. She just needed someone to believe in her. And so did you. The mansion that was once filled with quiet despair was now a place of joy, music, and second chances, all because one cleaner dared to see the child behind the diagnosis and the father behind the mask. Don't forget to like, comment, share, and subscribe for more teachable and inspiring folk tales by FE.